But I think a lot of people worry about, oh, can I eat too much protein? Like the studies kind of point towards you really can't. But if we're talking about specifically like rebuilding from an injury, we need those amino acids to repair the muscle fibers, to repair those collagen structures. There's lots of collagen in our connective tissue and in our cartilage. And so when we want to repair those, we need those amino acids, which you can only get from eating protein. You need those to repair those tissues. And if you're not getting enough protein, then it's going to prolong the repair of those tissues.
Welcome to the Movement Driven Podcast with Dr. Greg Goldberger, where we help you bridge the gap between pain and performance. Each week, we'll share strategies, insights, and real-life applications to help you keep moving and stay driven. Now, let's get into this week's episode of the Movement Driven Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Movement Driven Podcast. I'm Dara here with Dr. Greg. How are you doing today?
What's up, guys? I'm doing well. How are you, Dara?
Good. I am a little hungry.
Are you?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Well, with March being Nutrition Month.
Oh, is it Nutrition Month?
It is. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about fueling recovery and what that missing link in orthopedic rehab
Well,
is.
I hope you can last till the end of the podcast before you get too hungry.
Yeah, I hope so too. So, yes, we're going to be talking about nutrition today. And I think that there is this misconception that rehab is just exercise. All you got to do is a couple stretches here, a couple workouts here, do this extra thing in my warm-up. But there's a whole other component that is just even more important from my perspective and what I honestly think is nutrition. And why is nutrition such a critical piece when you are going through orthopedic recovery?
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying this is not my area of expertise in terms of, I'm good at the physical therapy side, but, nutrition does matter from a healing perspective and kind of expediting that process and making as good of a process as it can be. So for more specific questions, please see a dietitian, a nutritionist. But people do ask me all the times, what can I change or how can I change my diet during this kind of these phases of rehab to make it even better than it is with just the exercises and manual therapy that we're doing. And so we talk about, like what type of tissue is damaged, what stage of the healing process are you in, and how changing your diet can kind of expedite that healing process, protein and how that's going to affect the rebuilding of muscle fibers or collagen structures or connective tissue. We can talk about, anti-inflammatory diets. All that kind of stuff can really go a long way to making the rehab process as smooth as you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I can speak from experience when I say how, obviously performance-wise and wanting to lift heavier and run faster and do all those things, nutrition obviously helps with that aspect as well. But, there has been times where I've, been injured or I have felt, some pain and I had to work through some stuff. And when I was eating like crap, my body was in constant state of inflammation. So it was having a very hard time with healing.
For sure.
Or with, even just feeling better because it was just constantly inflamed. So when I started to, have a more balanced food lifestyle approach and, eating more whole foods and eating things that are not going to be setting my body up to be in a constant state of inflammation, I did notice just from that alone that pain was decreasing. However, obviously still needed to have the physical aspect of that in the rehab and performance that I was doing. But it was a huge, huge impact. And one thing that I noticed specifically that really impacted me the most was when I actually started to pay attention to my protein intake. That was something that I had a really bad relationship often that like up and down with tracking macros for a really long time. Finally got to a place where I felt very comfortable with it. And I really, truly started to notice a huge difference when I actually started to hit those macros and get that, I think my protein count right now is like 160 or something like that per day.
With a lot of people listening would be shocked to hear that.
Yeah, they'd be like, what?
Right.
Great place to start is at least 100 if that's like all you're working with. But why does that protein intake change, or why does changing your protein intake impact someone who's injured?
Well, I think we start off with the simple kind of thought process of like, what if you have muscle and tendon injuries, like those tissues are made up primarily, that is a protein. Like, it's made up of protein, it's made up of collagen. So we need to replenish our bodies with that. And real quick comment on what your point, I remember reading a study in grad school where they were kind of concerned about how much protein young athletes and young college students were getting in, especially, when everybody was doing a protein shake and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And they increased these college subjects' protein drastically, like upwards of what you're doing and even beyond that. I think the men were doing 400 grams of protein a day. And just so everybody out there can hear, they had no negative side effects. No liver, no kidney, nothing was being overworked. Everything was positive other than maybe being a little too full. But um but I think a lot of people worry about, oh, can I eat too much protein? Like, the studies kind of point towards you really can't. But if we're talking about specifically like rebuilding from an injury, we need those amino acids to repair the muscle fibers, to repair those collagen structures. Like I said, tendons are made up primarily of collagen. There's lots of collagen in our connective tissue and in our cartilage. And so when we want to repair those, we need those amino acids, which you can only get from eating protein, to, those essential amino acids. You need those to repair those tissues. And if you're not getting enough protein, then it's going to prolong the repair of those tissues. But, not just protein. I think protein, along with things like vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, iron, these are all really critical to be, all in the diet for collagen repair and cellular repair specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. And good examples of protein are, the obvious, like chicken and turkey and fish and eggs. And, for our vegans or vegetarians out there, there's lentils, beans, quinoa, tofu, tempeh, which my husband actually makes fun of me a lot because I really like tofu.
Mhm.
But I only eat it at like Asian restaurants. So like if
Well,
we
that's
get
where it's kind of made the most.
right. So like if I get like pad thai or
Right.
we go and to Indian food or ramen or anything, like I'm getting like the vegetable with like the tofu.
Right.
And like
To get the protein.
I don't know
Well,
why I just love it so much from there.
but doesn't it just take the taste of whatever you kind of season it with? Like, it
Basically.
just tastes with whatever you marinate it with. Yeah.
Yep. And Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, bone broth, those are
Those are really good for people. Forget that yogurt
Mhm.
and cottage cheese are really good for protein.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely, and not just on the fad that cottage cheese has become over the last 2 years, but I remember when I was in like fourth grade, my mom put me on the South Beach diet because I was just a normal growing child that with a little.
That needed a diet.
Yeah, it's fine. We're working through it still.
Yeah.
But-
That's another episode.
yeah. But I like cottage cheese grossed me out so much, and then when this fad started to come again, I was like, ew.
You had that memories from it.
Yep, and then, I think it was actually Nikki from Graham Strength and Conditioning who taught me a little trick to put that in my egg muffins, and that made them a little bit more fuller, so one day I finally after
And you don't even taste it.
don't even taste it, but it did make them a little bit more fuller and, like, more fluffy, and then one day I was just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna try it," and I took a bite, and I was like, "This literally tastes like cheese." Like, there's nothing weird about it. If you're a texture person,
It's a texture thing.
Yeah.
Well, and shout out to Nikki, by the way, for those of you listening. She's definitely one of the people we refer to for nutrition
Okay.
advice. She's excellent. She's up in Atlantic Beach or Neptune Beach area. Her and her husband run a great gym, and they do nutrition coaching as well. So definitely a good person to reach out to. If you need her information, please reach out to us and we'll get it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now that I'm off of my cottage cheese pedestal for a second there, my cottage cheese soapbox there. Let's continue with talking a little bit more. We talked about inflammation and hydration. So outside of protein, what roles do those things play and how quickly someone can heal?
Yeah, I think the inflammation. Let's go over a little bit about inflammation. Inflammation gets a bad rap, but and sometimes, when we have these autoimmune disorders, which I think a lot of people are kind of on that spectrum more than we realize, and we have this kind of whole body elevated inflammatory, state that can be bad. And if we have too much inflammation in an acute injury, then that can be bad. But inflammation is absolutely necessary for healing process. Without inflammation, we will not initiate the repair process. There are certain cells with that inflammation is carrying to kind of eat away the crappy tissue and the dead tissue and the injured tissue. And then it brings another wave of mast cells and other things to build those tissues back up. So without inflammation, we are not repairing tissue. But to your point, when it becomes chronic and it's excessive, we do want to think how diet's affecting that. So, things like extra turmeric in your diet or omega-3 fatty acids are really good at, decreasing the amount of inflammation in your body. And then if you're not getting the right nutrition and then you're not sleeping well, you're stressing more, all these metabolic factors are changing. That's going to increase inflammation itself. Like when you have stress, we've talked about this before. That's a pro-inflammatory. Cortisol is a pro-inflammatory. So when you're stressed, it's going to kind of initiate that domino effect. So the diet has to be somewhat under control, or else what are we really doing?
Right. Exactly. And, one thing I noticed too was especially hydration. It's not just about drinking more water.
Mhm.
You really need to, whether it's your Celtic salt or your lemon or something like that, you're putting in it, or Element is a fantastic supplement that truly, truly, truly does help with your hydration. Also has magnesium and other things in it
Right.
as well. Um,
Magnesium is huge, by the way. We
or
talked
you,
about
yeah, I'm a big advocate for magnesium.
I take magnesium every day.
Every single day. Before I got off of my pharmaceutical medications, they had me on metformin, and I was doing some research about what metformin does and what magnesium does. And guess what? They basically do the same thing.
Mhm.
Not a licensed medical
And for those
professional
of you,
here.
metformin is the main diabetic medication.
Yeah.
So that just shows you what it's doing to your metabolism. If you can replace that with a natural supplement like
Yes.
magnesium,
Yes.
starting to
I started taking magnesium and then started to slowly but surely get off my metformin. Again, we are not here to tell you to stop taking your medication. So please hear us
no, yeah,
here. We
consult
really
the
are
doctor.
that. But just to inform you, for those who maybe don't know that, that was one of the things that I noticed when I was kind of discovering, like, why am I on this medication and not getting better, and stopped taking that and was on magnesium and still take magnesium.
And well, the reason I started taking it was I read an article of how much it reduces stress and anxiety, and it's drastically transformed. I think it did just as much, if not more, than SSRIs I've been on in the past for anxiety and depression and things like that. So, and then if we get take it one step further, you mentioned the hydration, you mentioned the magnesium. Magnesium plays a huge role in muscle relaxation, right? So you mentioned it's not just about drinking water. In fact, if you drink too much water, it kind of dilutes these things like magnesium, calcium, potassium, um, and sodium, right?
Mhm.
Just like we need salt, like people take salt when they're running. There's a reason for that. You need the right balance of these electrolytes so that your muscles can function. So when we talk about muscle relaxation and avoiding cramping and, nervous system regulation and sleep quality, like magnesium is definitely super important for that. And then, hydration in general, we've talked about fascia in the past. Our fascial injuries, our fascial restrictions, they are largely due to lack of hydration to the system. So if you're not getting enough water, enough of these electrolytes, you're doing your body a very big disservice for sure.
Yeah. And a lot of these things that we just talked about really help with gut health. And that is also something that helps significantly during recovery as well. And, a lot of people say, like, oh, well, you are what you eat. So if you eat crap, you feel like crap.
For sure.
It literally, your gut is probably like, it's like a second brain,
Yeah, that's what they're saying for sure.
literally.
That's what everybody I think that's been the biggest change in healthcare in the last maybe 5 to 10 years is
Mhm.
people realizing how important gut is. And, if your gut health's poor, then you can even you're trying to take all these supplements and stuff, but if there's not a really robust, well-rounded diet, then you're not even really absorbing enough of these nutrients that you're taking in, and you're still depleted. There's no immune regulation. If with anything, the gut health is super related to the autoimmune disorders, right? Like when we talk about IBS or Crohn's is autoimmune, but people that have lupus, people that have rheumatoid arthritis, the gut health is absolutely necessary for them.
Yeah.
Um, and it reduces the systemic inflammation like we were talking
Yeah.
about before. So get your prebiotics in, get your probiotics in, get your hydration. All that's going to support the gut for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And also, when I first got diagnosed with PCOS back in 2009, they were at that point saying it was a relative or a sister or cousin to diabetes. And now, in the last 6 years, they have recently discovered it's really actually an autoimmune disease. So that's one thing that I struggled with and had to deal with, and still kind of to the most part have. But one of the things that was really impactful for getting healthier and recovering from that was also doing the gut health thing. And it wasn't, I do have probiotics and some stuff, but honestly, I get some root ginger, root turmeric,
Mhm.
grind it up.
Right for inflammation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
with a little black pepper and some lemons, and I make a jar of it, and I every couple weeks, I make a new one, and I literally do a shot of that every morning before I drink some water, take that shot.
That's relatively easy.
Yeah,
And it's not like you have to eat it every meal.
yeah,
It's like you said, it's just one shot a day and
yeah.
it's drastically changing the way you feel, the way you recover from your workouts.
Mhm,
And, we talk about, rehabbing an injury, but it's hard to say how much that's doing to prevent injury for you.
mhm.
Probably a lot.
Yeah,
So start now if you're not injured
yeah,
as of now.
yeah.
So we can prevent it and you never have to work with
Yes,
us.
get it going. Get it going. So, all right, we can move off of that for just a second there. I think there's some really good points in there. And obviously both of us very passionate about that specific topic and talking about that. So, if someone is listening and they're currently in physical therapy, what are three simple nutritional shifts that they can start this week to help improve their recovery or whatever it is that they're working on?
Yeah, I would start with hydration, like we just talked about. Hydration would be first. Hydration, get out processed foods. I mean, we talk about all this all the time, or I talk about this with my patients all the time. Even the processed foods that we ate as kids or the processed foods your parents ate were healthier relative to what you can buy in the store now. Like when you bought the sugary cereal before, it was cane sugar. It was like one of the worst things in there. And now we're like, we'd rather have cane sugar listed on the ingredients list than all the other stuff you can't pronounce. So when we talk about processed food, we talk about like gluten intolerance. They're saying a lot of it could be more of the chemicals that are in it, not necessarily a true gluten intolerance that people are having.
Yeah.
The difference between our bread and bread in Europe,
I
all that
was
kind
gonna
of stuff.
say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I have a client that went to Europe and lost a bunch of weight. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? You look great. And she's like, I didn't change a freaking thing. I'm just eating in Europe.
Yeah.
And she's probably eating more bread and pasta than she was here
Yeah.
and losing weight and feeling better. So get off the process. So hydration, get off the processed foods. And then you got to have some type of supplementation. Like even a really well-rounded diet, there's going to be something you're missing. We didn't even talk about vitamin D. I think vitamin D is huge. That's
Mhm.
something that a lot of people are low on these days. And that has a really long domino effect of how it affects inflammation, affects how you feel, affects your mood and your stress levels.
Mhm.
So talk to a doctor, get some testing done that's beyond a regular, your regular lipid panel, your regular CBC. Like find out what you're really lacking and get in the nitty gritty, and just get on a good supplementation protocol. But if we want to sum it up, it's just eat clean and eat balanced, and that's what they've always taught us since we were in school. And it's a lot of the time I think it's much easier said than done, especially when you can't even just busy moms and dads out there and you want to just go and pick up food on the way home because you don't have time to cook. And it's like, where do you go for a really healthy meal? I couldn't even really tell you unless it's like one of these small mom and pops that's just really, making clean food. But you got to start cooking at home, start meal prepping on the weekends.
Yeah.
You got to dedicate some time. It's not easy, but it's worth it for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And rehab is not just what you do for 1 hour in the clinic. It's how you fuel the other
How
23
you
hours of your
approach
day.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, just to kind of close up on here that, if you want a roadmap or, something that at least points you in the right direction, we do have a free download, the Ultimate Nutrition Guide for Orthopedic Injury Recovery in the show notes. Dr. Greg and I are not dietitians and nutrition,
Right.
but these are just some truly basic things that can help you get pointed in the right direction that will help escalate your recovery and just your overall health and well-being.
For sure. Yeah, and use our guide as a good starting point and to get some tips and pointers. But if you really do want some help, like let us know. We've made a lot of good contacts in the area. Like I said, Nikia Graham is great. Tyler with Trademark Physiques, he does a lot of nutrition coaching. And we have contacts with dietitians and licensed nutritionists as well. So give us a message or comment below on this podcast, and we'll send you the contact info of some of the people we know and trust the most in this area. Even for functional, gut health testing and, all this kind of functional medicine stuff, we have good contacts for that too. So
Yeah.
let us know. We'll hook you up with our peeps and the people that we trust and the people that we use. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dr. Greg. Well, I think this was an amazing episode, a great way to close out the month of March, which is Nutrition Month, and something that can be carried on way past this. It should be every day
For sure.
of the year,
For
not
sure.
just in this month. But yeah, so thank you so much. And like Dr. Greg said, if you need a resource in this area, we could definitely help you out. You can also go to movementdriven.com, book a discovery call, chat about that. And we can talk to you about your nutritional recovery as well as your physical therapy recovery as well for when you're trying to get back to sport, just trying to run around with your kids, or, get back into a good habit overall. We can help you with that.
Love it. See you next time, guys.
Hi, have a good one. Thanks for tuning in to the Movement Driven Podcast with Dr. Greg Goldberger. Want to see how we're helping people in Jacksonville bridge the gap between pain and performance? Head on over to movementdriven.com. Until next time, keep moving, stay driven.